Hello, Algebra 1. All right, yesterday, or the last time I spoke to you, I don't know if it was yesterday or not, but I asked you to try number 5 and number 6 from the whiteboard work problems, and I wanted you to take a moment so you could check over your answers and see how you did. So take a moment and look at this. Okay, and then once again, I just always want to stress that whatever the x-coordinate is to your vertex, that's always the same as your axis of symmetry. So the axis of symmetry and the x-coordinate of the vertex will always be the same, and that's because the axis of symmetry runs through your vertex. The axis of symmetry runs through your vertex. To know max versus min, if your a is a negative number, that's when the graph opens down, and that's when the vertex is at the highest point, so that's why that was a max. If your a is a positive number, then the graph opens up, which makes your vertex the lowest point of the graph, called a min. So that's how I knew that. This formula right here is what gives me my axis of symmetry, as well as the x-coordinate to the vertex. And then just to remind you that because this is the x, then I took -1 and I put it in that x, and I took -1 and I put it in that x. I plugged all of it in my calculator, and boom, out came the 5. As long as an equation is in standard form, no parentheses, highest exponent to lowest, the y-intercept will always be the c. It will be the constant. And then the y-coordinate of the vertex will always be the max or min value, because it's at the vertex that is the max value, or it's at the vertex that is the min value. So that's why this number has something to do with the vertex. And the reason it's the y value of the vertex is because I want to know how high it is or how low it is. Okay, so the last few days we've been working on how to find the axis of symmetry, vertex, y-intercept, max, min by using a formula and using our brains. So today I actually want to show you how to do this with your graphing calculator. Okay, so I am going to redo this problem right here on my graphing calculator. And then I'm just going to show you how to do this with that. Okay, so you're going to have to learn how to push a few new buttons today, but it's always good to know how to run your calculator. So now you know how to do it by hand and with your brain, but now let's learn how to do it with the graphing calculator. Okay, so I'm going to my graphing calculator link that I've put on the Canvas calendar for you. I'm going to go to y equals, and I'm going to clear this equation off, and I'm going to type in this equation from number 5 that I had you do for me the other day. So I've got -6x squared. So I'm just typing that in, minus 12x minus 1. Okay, so just to remind you of some buttons, this is the x that I always use. When I square something, I just always push this button here for x squared. Remember, under the 3 is your little negative. So this one is a negative right here, but this is a minus, and this is a minus. But this guy is a negative. So I clicked negative for that. And then the other ones were just the minus sign. So there was my x, and there's my squared. Okay, I'm going to hit graph. Now, by looking at the graph, can you tell if it's a max or a min? It's a max. Which, did we answer max? We sure did. Okay, now the next thing I want to show you that's really easy to find is the y-intercept. So go to your table, go second graph. So second graph. Remember, y-intercepts always have an x value of 0. So I'm going to zoom in on this a little bit. Oh, this is not a touch screen. Miss Wood, jeez. So if you have forgotten, y-intercepts always have a 0 for the x. X-intercepts always have a 0 for the y. So anytime you're looking for the y-intercept, you want to be looking for 0 in the x column. And the y that goes with it is your y-intercept. So there's my y-intercept, 0, -1. Let's see. Is that what we said it was? Yes. And if I wrote it as an ordered pair, that's what it would have been, 0, -1. And I'm sorry I didn't do that here. So 0, -1. All right, now the vertex, that's the one that's a little bit challenging to find in the graphing calculator. So there's some new keystrokes that you're going to have to do. All right, so to find the vertex, we're going to go to calc. Because it's in blue, we're going to go second trace. So second trace. Too bad this isn't a touch screen, huh? Second trace. Now, a minute ago, when I showed you this parabola, it was the vertex is at a maximum, right? So when you're here and you want to know the vertex, you have to know if it's a minimum or a maximum. And it's a maximum because the graph opened down. Okay, so we want to go to number 4. And once you get to number 4, you're going to hit enter. All right, and then this says left bound. So right now you see a little blinky cursor. The left and right arrows move the blinky cursor. So we want to get the blinky cursor to the left of the vertex. So I'm going to left arrow until my blinky cursor is to the left of the vertex. And right now it's to the left of the vertex. So I'm going to hit enter. Then it says right bound. So I want to get Mr. Blinky to the right of the vertex. So I'm going to right arrow, click, 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 until Mr. Blinky is to the right of the vertex. And it doesn't matter where it is as long as it's to the right of it. Once I have it to the right, I'm going to hit enter. And then it says guess. So it wants you to try to get Mr. Blinky cursor right at the vertex, or where it looks like it is. So I'm going to left arrow until it looks like the blinky cursor is right where the vertex is. And then I'm going to hit enter. And then my calculator tells me down here. Now this I have to kind of round. So I would say this is -1, 5. And let's see, is that what we got? -1, 5. Yes, awesome. And then once you know the vertex, the axis of symmetry will always be that exact same number. But remember, it's going to say x equals because axis of symmetries are vuxes. That's why you need x equals. Colin Martin. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's look at another one here with the calculator. Colin.
Yeah? Why?
All right, so this is on an assignment that's linked in the Canvas calendar, and it says something like a assignment over identifying key features of quadratic graphs, and it's number 5, 6, and 7. I just rewrote them on a separate piece of paper.
I thought a cute mermaid.
Okay, so I'm going to go and I'm going to type number 5 in here. So let me clear that off. All right, so I'm going to type in -x squared. So if you need to see me do it, there's my negative, and then x, and then squared, and then what do we have? Plus 2x plus 4. Okay, so plus 2x plus 4. So let's see here. So -x squared plus 2x plus 4. And that's exactly what I wanted. Okay, so I'm going to hit the button that says graph. First, let's decide, do we have a max or a min? We have a max because the vertex is the highest point in the graph. Okay, so I am going to circle maximum. Okay, next I'm going to find the y-intercept because that's really easy to do. So I'm going to go to the table. So second graph. And do you remember what I said about y-intercepts? They always have a 0 for the x. So we're looking for 0 in the x column. And here he is. And so I look across and there's the y-intercept. So 0, 4. So that's our y-intercept. Okay, now the vertex, that's the one that takes a little more work. So let me look at my picture again. The vertex is a maximum. So we need to remember that. So we're going to go to calc up here. So second trace. and I'm finding a maximum, so I'm going to go to number 4, and then I'm going to hit enter. Okay, then you see this left bound, right bound, guess. So left bound, it wants Mr. Blinky cursor to the left of the vertex. Is it currently to the left of my vertex? Yes. So I'm going to hit enter. Now it says right bound. So I'm going to right arrow until Mr. Blinky is to the right of my vertex. And now he's to the right of my vertex. So I'm going to hit enter. And then guess, I need to move my left arrow so the Blinky cursor is right where it looks like the vertex is. And I'm going to hit enter. And a lot of times you're going to have to round one of these. So 0.99999 is basically 1. So this is going to be 1, 5. And I always could have found the vertex using my axis of symmetry formula, opposite of b over 2 times a. But today I wanted to show you how to do some stuff in your graphing calculator. All right, the axis of symmetry is x equals, and then it's whatever the x coordinate is to your vertex, which was 1. So it's x equals 1. And then, do you know what the max or min value is without me telling you? How high is this vertex? How high is that maximum value? How high does it get? It gets to a 5 because that is the y coordinate of the vertex. And the y of the vertex always tells you how high something is or how low something is. Okay? Now, I'm going to look at number 7 here. This one we're going to have to do something else to our calculator that we haven't done before. So I am going to have to teach you something new with this one. So first let me type this in. So I'm going to go to my y equals, Colin, I'll get it later. Ow! So I'm going to hit clear, and I'm going to type that equation in. 3x squared, so 3x squared, and then minus 12x, so minus 12x, and then minus 4, minus 4. Okay, 3x squared minus 12x minus 4. Okay, then I'm going to hit graph. So let's answer what we can. Does it look like we have a max or a min? I know you can't see the vertex, but what do you think? Definitely a minimum. All right, so I'm going to circle minimum. Now, we're going to do something that we haven't done before. Because I cannot see that vertex, I want to see it. So we're going to hit this button that says window. And I want to see lower, right? So would X make me see lower, or would Y make me see lower? Y would. So I'm going to come down here to Y minimum, and I need this to be a smaller number than negative 10. So I'm just going to make it negative 20 and see if that works. So let's hit graph and see if we can find our vertex. Oh no. Oh, I didn't change it. Okay, hang on. Let me type in negative 20 again. So negative 20. And then I'm going to hit graph. Okay, that time it worked. So sometimes when you can't see your vertex, you have to come to the window button. If I wanted to see higher, I would have changed my Y max to a bigger number. But because I wanted to see lower, I changed my Y min to a smaller number. And that's going to take some practice. Okay, so now I can see everything. So let's do the y-intercept first. So let's go to the table. So second graph. And do you see it? Do you see the y-intercept? Here it is, 0, negative 4. Because y-intercepts always have a 0 for the x. So the y-intercept is 0, negative 4. Now we can find the vertex with our calculate button. So let's look at the picture again. It's a minimum, right? So this time when we go to calculate, second trace, we want to pick number 3, minimum. So let's go to number 3 and hit enter. And then it's going to ask for left bound, right bound, guess. So we want to get the blinky cursor to the left of the vertex. Would you say my blinky cursor right now is to the left of my vertex? Yeah, that's to the left. So I'm just going to hit enter. Okay, now it says right bound. So now I need to get Mr. Blinky to the right side. So I'm going to right arrow. I know Mr. Blinky, he's pretty funny. So I'm going to right arrow So my blinky cursor is to the right of the vertex, and then I'm going to hit enter. And then guess, it wants me to get Mr. Blinky right where it looks like the vertex would be. So I'm going to left arrow and get him right where it looks like the vertex is, and hit enter. And then I'm going to have to round this to about 2, and then this is negative 16. So 2, negative 16 is my vertex. All right, the axis of symmetry is always x equals, because it's a vertical line, it's a vux. And what do you think the number is? 2. The axis of symmetry and the x-coordinate to the vertex are always the same. Now, this was a minimum, and I want to know how low does that graph get? Do you know what it is? It's negative 16, because that's the y-coordinate of the vertex, and the y-coordinate of the vertex is always how low something is, or it's how high something is. Okay, so whatever the x-coordinate of the vertex is, that's the axis of symmetry number. So whatever the x-coordinate of the vertex is, that's the axis of symmetry number. And the y-coordinate is the max or min. The y-coordinate is the max or min. So what I'm asking you to do is number 6 from this worksheet. So if you can access the worksheet on the Canvas calendar, that's fine. Or you could just write this problem on a separate piece of paper. And then I want you to use your graphing calculator that's on your computer. And then once you figure it out, I want you to take a picture of it, and I want you to post to Canvas. Okay, let's see how you can do with your technology. Smiley face.